Okay, so now let's see what we can doubt. Right, so remember, Descartes trying to see if there are any beliefs he has, which he knows with absolute certainty, which can't be doubted. So, first he says, obviously, we get most of our beliefs through our senses. And we get most beliefs and information through our senses. So, I mean, we obviously should test and see if our senses are to be trusted, if they're reliable in giving us true beliefs. So is there any information that we get from our senses which there's reason to doubt? And this just seems like a clear yes, right? Our senses are flawed. Our senses make mistakes all the time. Here are some really common examples, especially for those of us here in Arizona. Here's an opportunity where our senses deceive us all the time, right? It always looks like on a hot Arizona day when you're driving down a long highway, like there's water in the distance on the highway. So just as you see in this picture, it looks like there's water there, but as you drive up, as you get closer, the water keeps moving, right? Oh, so there must not actually be any water there. And when you get there, you inspect the area, turns out there is no water there. Your senses are deceiving you. There's some type of optical illusion going on here. So here's just one common example of how our senses can deceive us, but there are plenty of others too. So if you stick a pencil in water, right, it'll look as though the pencil is bent or disjointed, when in reality, obviously, that's not true. Right? So there's another opportunity, another instance where our senses are deceiving us. And you should be able to think of plenty of more examples too. So, given that there are these things like illusions, mirages, hallucinations, it seems like we can't be entirely certain that the information we're getting from our senses is trustworthy. Right, so if they're fooling us or reporting false information on a good number of occasions, or even a minority of occasions, that's still enough, right, for us to doubt the truth of the information we get through our senses. What if the things we think are certain are actually just uh, other instances of illusions or hallucinations, but we just haven't realized it yet? Right? So there's a number of ways where we could really doubt the information that's coming in through our senses. And Descartes thinks this is just clearly a case where there's doubt, and if there's doubt, there can't be knowledge, there can't be absolute certainty. But you might wonder, well, what about Descartes? You're a scientist. What about better conditions, right? So with the road case, when we're at a distance, it seems as if there's water on the road, but as we get closer, as we put ourselves into better observation conditions, we get to sort of dismantle the hallucination or the illusion, right? So what about our senses in good conditions? Can these be trusted? And so all of our examples so far have made examples of hallucinations, illusions, and all of these are just due to our poor conditions. Right? With the pencil in the water, we can remeasure things. Right? We don't just have to rely on our optical perception of what's going on. Right? We can actually measure, pull the pencil out, see that it's not bent. Right? We can get ourselves into better conditions for observation. And so this is what science is all about. Well, much of what science is about, right? Getting ourselves into the proper observational conditions to make sure that all of the other variables are controlled, right? To make sure that we can rule out all of these other options and really just focus on one important piece of information. And so science is in the business of getting into sort of the best observational conditions. And it seems like in these cases, our senses do provide us with trustworthy information. Right? We can, every time we think there's an illusion or some type of mirage, right, we can get ourselves into better conditions and then learn the truth about it. So it seems like although our senses aren't always trustworthy, when we're really careful and we take time to put ourselves into a better position, then our senses can be reliable. Unfortunately, Descartes is going to say, no, even in those cases, your senses aren't entirely to be trusted. And why might that be? And here Descartes gives the dream argument. So Descartes, although many people report not having dreams like this, but we'll see how you feel about it. There's other ways we can get the argument to go through. Here's Descartes' claim. He claims that he's had some dreams that are so vivid and realistic that he can't distinguish those dream experiences from real life experiences. So his sort of boring example that you read from the Meditations is that sometimes he dreams that he's sitting in front of the fire doing academic work, right? Sitting in front of the fire in his chair thinking about philosophy. And then he wakes up and he can't remember whether that's what he actually did before or if it was something that he just dreamt, because he's done this in real life and he's done it in his dreams. And he can't seem to pick out which cases were real and which weren't. He thinks the experiences are indistinguishable from one another. So first we need to analyze this claim, right? Is it the case that we can't distinguish between the two? And normally when I teach this class, it depends or changes from person to person, depends on each particular viewpoint. But some people clearly have had dreams like this, really vivid dreams, where later you can't remember whether the event you're remembering is a memory of a real life experience or just something that happened in a dream that seemed very real. But if you don't like this sort of dream argument, maybe you just don't remember your dreams or haven't had very vivid dreams, here's where you could sort of input something like the matrix scenario again, right? So even if we put ourselves into really good observational conditions and it seems like our senses are reporting information in a trustworthy way, well, it turns out we could be dreaming, right? And so it would report this either way, but it turns out that it's false if we're dreaming, right? It's not actually representing reality, it's representing some dream state. If you don't like the dream argument, just input the matrix there, right? So even if we're in very good observational conditions, if we're in the matrix, we're not learning any trustworthy information about reality. We're learning information about this sort of fake reality of the matrix. So it seems like even our senses in very good observational conditions just won't be good enough to produce trustworthy or reliable knowledge. So far, everything we get from our senses in bad or good conditions can't be known with absolute certainty. So we haven't gotten to any belief that Descartes really needs yet, right? Remember, he's looking for any beliefs that he can have with absolute certainty. So it seems like all of the senses can be doubted, even if it's just a little bit. Remember, just a little bit of doubt is enough. So our senses in bad conditions, we can clearly doubt, and there's a good amount of doubt there. Our senses in very good conditions, well, there's not as much doubt. It seems like things are pretty trustworthy. But due to the dream argument or a matrix argument, it seems like there's at least a little bit of doubt there. So what's left, right? Here's another slide that I'll leave up for a second about the dream argument. Really just recapping everything I've said so far, right? So if you've ever had dreams like Descartes, then he's going to claim you can't trust the information that comes from your senses, because if it deceives you even once, it's not to be wholly trusted. And so if you've ever had that sort of false memory of an experience that was actually from a dream, but you couldn't remember whether it was a dream or real life, then you've been deceived, right? You've been deceived once. And so you're not able to fully trust your observational capacities. Okay, so what's left then? Well, we can't really trust anything we get from the senses, so there's a pretty clear route to go from here, right? So think of what you're sensing even in the dream state or in the matrix. So you're seeing people or places or objects. Well, those objects might not actually be there. Those people might not actually exist, so on and so forth. But the shape of the fake person or fake object, the size of the fake object, the time at which these time order in which these events are occurring, right? So some things are still going to happen later or prior to other events. Those things you're still reporting in a true sense, right? So here's a belief. There's a person in front of me. Well, it turns out we can doubt that pretty heavily. But what about, hey, there appears to be this object in this particular shape. There's one of it. It's moving in a sequence of events, right? Those are all true of that object, or at least the representation of that object. So it seems like we can still know things like shapes and time and size. And so whether you're awake or you're dreaming, the information coming in is still recognizable in those senses. So you might doubt that it's say a cardboard box, but you definitely won't doubt that one side of that apparent cardboard box appears to be rectangular. Okay, so there's those bits of knowledge, and then there's also things like necessary truths and mathematical truths. So to go back to the idea that 2 plus 2 equals 4, if we're not getting that from our senses, and it's just something we can know by inspecting the meaning of words, then it seems like we might be able to have knowledge of this stuff, right? So, okay, we've doubted everything that comes from the senses, whether in good or bad conditions, but at least we can know this bit of stuff, this real abstract conceptual stuff, the bits, the small parts that make up our sensory beliefs, like shape and size and time, and we can know mathematical truths, right? Wrong. Everything gets to be doubted, apparently, due to Descartes' demon argument. All right, so assume that God doesn't exist. Instead of God, there's actually just this evil demon out there. So this echoes what you saw above in the comic strip. Imagine there's just this evil demon, and the evil demon's goal is just to deceive us about as much as he possibly can. And if this evil demon really is even just a fraction as powerful as we think God is, right, then the evil demon could deceive us about everything. Every time we try to reason about mathematics, the evil demon could input beliefs, false beliefs, into our head. Right? So we always say 2 plus 2 equals 4, but it could be the case that the evil demon is just putting that belief in our head, and in reality, 2 plus 2 equals 5. Right? Or the evil demon is sort of letting us see some fake representations, right? So we're sitting in our room or in our classroom or out in public, and we think we're seeing these people or these objects and these events occurring, when in reality none of that's occurring, right? Maybe there is no sort of corporeal world, no material world. There's just an immaterial world, and so we're seeing all of these shapes and things that appear to be external. It turns out the evil demon's deceiving us, right? None of those actually exist. We're just a soul in a box on a shelf somewhere, and he's inputting beliefs into our soul at every given moment, but none of them are true. Right? And so it seems like at this point we're lost. It seems like we can doubt absolutely everything. So remember to go through this in steps, right? He's not just going to start with the demon argument, although obviously you could start here and just doubt everything. He wants to break it down slowly, right? So we need to look at our senses, understand why those aren't trustworthy, but then also see that even our conceptual beliefs or mathematical beliefs or beliefs about shape and size and so on could all be false if an evil demon exists. Now, Descartes doesn't actually think an evil demon does exist, but remember, he's dealing with certainty here. And so it is possible that an evil demon exists, and if it's possible the evil demon exists, then it's possible that we're being deceived about everything. And if it's possible to doubt, then obviously we're not absolutely certain. Alright, so there we're going to stop with the method of doubt, and we're going to see in the next lecture whether or not Descartes can rebuild any of our knowledge, or if the evil demon has destroyed it all.